Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Colonel CPS Pasricha from the Indian Army. I'm very thankful to Dr. Anil Garg for having given me this opportunity to speak at such an august gathering. I'll be speaking on the subject of microgrids as a means of energy security for the armed forces, basically highlighting the issues that would be involved in a little way ahead. Yesterday we had uh, Dr. Pradhan speaking about energy security. Today, in passing reference, somebody talked about late Dr. Abdul Kalam referring to energy security as one of the main issues in the near foreseeable future. What we see also is that in case there is a conflict amongst nations in the near future, it will not be for land issues. It could be for freshwater resources and energy resources. We've seen what has been happening in Iraq. So that lies the importance of having an energy security for the country. Besides this, if any economy has to grow by, say, 8% GDP, the power sector or the energy sector has to grow by 10 to 11% to match up with the growing economy. And besides this, the government has to take adequate and timely steps to ensure that this growth is matched by adequate energy security that is provided. The armed forces also is one of the major users of energy, that is fossil fuel. The world's single largest consumer of fossil fuel is the US Department of Defense. And today, with the depleting fossil fuel, it is inherent that we move towards utilizing the renewable sources. Indian Army is also using a lot of fossil fuel. So we also need to migrate towards the renewable sources. You understand by the energy security for the armed forces. It primarily means what it implies is having assured access to reliable supplies of energy and the ability to protect and deliver sufficient energy to meet our operational needs or our critical needs. It would imply having surety of access, survivability, that is, it should be able to withstand the supply, should be able to withstand any kind of natural disasters or resilience, should have an alternative source, should be sufficient, that is, should have adequate energy, and sustainability. We have a large network of transmission networks all across the country. And invariably, you'll find that the military installations or the army areas are towards the end of these transmission and the distribution systems that we have. And as such, they get vulnerable or they are vulnerable to a lot of disruptions. Disruptions could be because of the remote location, because of anything, could be landslides, or in many areas is because of physical attacks by the insurgents or the anti-national elements. It could be because of the aging infrastructure that we have. Certain things, present systems that we have towards our army installations, we have an aging transmission distribution system, which probably at times when the cantonments or the big bases were constructed, dates back to 47. And certain posts, by virtue of being in very, very high altitude areas, totally snowbound, get totally cut off for 6 months. At places, they are to be supplied by helicopters. They are to be stocked for 6 months. Nothing moves there. Nothing can go to those posts. The contingencies, certain places we have is only DG sets or diesel generating sets. Certain areas we have are renewable sources, but they are in standalone bases and they are not integrated at all. And because, as I said earlier, because of severe weather, landslide, avalanches, floods, anything you may say, we get vulnerable in our forward areas. So what happens is we have reduced mission readiness, reaction time, sustainability, and reduced energy security. A few pictures of how we manage our forward locations. Now what you see in the lower pictures is that we lay kerosene pipelines in very high altitude areas to meet our energy needs. And at places where it is supplied by helicopters, it is very, very costly. So any kilowatt of energy produced in that location saves that much of effort that is required to either carry, pump, or take the fossil fuel by helicopters. Certain areas, including the borders, we have over 15,000 kilometers of land border with a military post or a border post every 300 to 400 meters, and they're all remote posts. You require the fence, major uh, energy needs for the sensors on the fence, for electrifying the fence, for lighting the fence. Plus the bases that we have all around from where the patrolling is carried out, you require energy there. So what is the need? What we need to do? What is our requirement? Firstly is that we need to decrease our dependence on fossil fuel. We have to enhance our energy security. We need to increase our energy efficiency, especially during operations. And also we need to reduce the risk that is there to the troops as they use maybe transport or store energy. We need to minimize our defense spending on consuming energy so that we can divert these funds to something better. As also, we need to use optimally renewable energy sources and migrating onto better, cleaner fuels, reducing the carbon footprints. Now, certain things I'd like to highlight as a parallel, what is happening in the US Army. There's a lot of deployment in Afghanistan and the other countries. And the dependency on fossil fuel, as the reports are, each soldier uses about 22 gallons of fuel every day. And each gallon of fuel costs about $300 to $400 only for transportation, not counting the amount of lives that have been lost. Over 1,000 lives have been lost during logistics and transportation. A convoy takes about 800 kilometers, traveling about 18 days to reach the user. Besides this, in Afghanistan, a base generator, a total base, an army base or armed forces base, it might cost over $34 million per year to operate. So this is the kind of cost that is there. So what happened? To reduce in July 2012, to reduce the dependency of the US Department of Defense on the energy, that is fossil fuels, was one of the main challenges. They took out an operational energy strategy at the national level. How best could they use energy, keeping in view the national policies and their strategic aims? They set up an Army Energy Initiative Task Force, which was the interface between the industry, academia, and fructifying projects, executing projects on ground. They also have a number of advanced grid projects or microgrid projects. They also have been developing tactical microgrids. Just a few of them. In Afghanistan, there were 28 mini grids or microgrids that were projects that were executed and constructed. This has led to saving of 50 million gallons of fuel annually. It also comes to about 20,000 trucks or 55 trucks, major fuel carrying trucks moving every day. And it removed about 1,900 generators, on-spot generators. And statistics also reveal that the energy efficiency with microgrids has improved by 30 to 40%. We also have certain microgrid test beds which have been constructed in their major bases. Last one, which is Fort Bliss, there was a demonstration project with Lockheed Martin, and it has a 120 kilowatt PV system with 300 kilowatt storage system. And as on date, the latest reports say that they have 40 major stations or their bases, those big bases, which are being converted into microgrid stations. And over 600 smaller bases are being developed on the microgrids. This is huge business potential. This is US Army. Now, these are the kind of small microgrid stations that they're constructing, which are transportable, towable, or containerized. The business potential or the market potential that it has within the country, all over the world, it is an IEEE report, as the Zypher report, which it says, this has come out through the Navigant research, that the biggest investor in microgrids in the near future is going to be, by 2023, is going to be either healthcare or hospitals, and the second is military microgrids. And the business potential is over 31 billion by year 2023. Now, certain benefits that we have for microgrids in the military installations. Firstly is increased reliability at a overall lower cost. As I said, every kilowatt which is produced on site with these renewable sources put in together, let it be wind, solar, storage, CHPs or whatever, that one amount of effort is saved in transportation of fossil fuel. Lower infrastructure requirement, you don't have to lay elaborate or long transmission lines, distribution lines, and the allied losses. That is totally reduced. It is totally grid independent and on-site generation. It leads to greater efficiency, leading to lower cost, that is the load factor is high. And it also enables integration of renewable sources. We have good energy security, especially for the critical operations. Critical operations could be your sensors, your unmanned sensors, your healthcare, or your emergencies, or your control operation rooms, or your lightning and all these things. And of course, sustainability by reducing the carbon footprints. And the killer application is that these microgrids during calamity or breakages can operate independently without the grid. So they operate independently in isolations. The way ahead, what I think we can take as a way ahead or a feedback point from the conference here is that we also need, going on the US lines, an operational energy policy probably in the Ministry of Defense that could guide us how to use the energy resources to support our national energy security goals. We also should have some kind of an organization or a task force which could integrate or be a bridge between the academia, the industry, and the business, where we can develop microgrids for the armed forces. We must, in remote areas, establish and develop microgrids in the northeast and the northern areas. The many villages, many areas which are without any power. We must encourage research and design projects in collaboration with technical institutes. And finally, we must have these smaller mobile microgrids. So in conclusion, what I'd like to say is that we have a lot of systems in place. If you see any location, even if you see a convention center like this, we will have backup generators, we will have a PV system, we may have a wind generator, we may have some other plants. But what you need is integrating all these systems together with an intelligent controller. That is all you require. So the investment would be in a controller and integrating all these things together. And secondly, with these new technologies coming in, the storage technologies, the new designs, the enhancement or the nanotechnology coming in, we need to imbibe these technologies. We need to absorb them and use to our advantage. Also, we need to integrate these distributed energy resources and develop microgrids. That's all.